Hi, hello, and welcome. I'm definitely not Vlad, and we're going to check out the changes they've done to edit mode in the Midnight beta. So this is what we can sort of expect in Midnight, pending some changes and probably improvements. I say probably improvements because there's some things I'm not particularly happy about. So let's get into it. First things first, I'm the realist. Second things second, action bars are not getting much love. You still can't adjust the padding between things. You can't adjust the removal of borders and stuff. We're going to hope that add-ons are going to be able to handle these things, such as just like the way that these things look, because right now the action bars are pretty ugly. I do believe a new setting that we do have now is that we can make them always visible in combat, out of combat, or just straight up hidden. So that's useful for people who like to have their action bars hidden and just have the cooldown manager or their weak aura hub, but in in Midnight it's going to be the cooldown manager showing them their sort of things. By sort of things, I mean their abilities. So next up we have the damage meter. The damage meter currently, well, you can change a few things about it. You can't change the padding, that doesn't seem to do anything, but you can adjust the frame height so you can see Uther, or you can adjust it to just see 5 people if you're a dungeon enjoyer. The text size can also be adjusted, and then opacity can be adjusted, which I don't know who would use that. You can adjust the visibility so it only shows up in combat, or if it's always visible, or if it's hidden, which I don't know. Right now, this thing just doesn't work, from my understanding. Actually, you know what? Let me just check. Let me double check that that is actually the case. I have it set to be always visible, but it's not, and there's no setting to turn it on. But if I hit things, yeah, it just doesn't show up, so it doesn't really matter. So yeah. Hopefully they fix it soon. I would love to be able to see what all we can do with the damage meter. Right now I do know that there is an option for showing healing done, damage done, interrupts, and the spells. Actually, the healing done thing I'm not 100% sure about. Hopefully it is an option because I'd like to see how much I'm healing when I do heal. There are some number options which currently I don't see any difference between them when I do change them, and there's the thin and default style. Okay, I like the default one significantly more than the thin one, so there is that. Yes, so currently just some visibility, like visual options, not much more customization than that. And also they don't really work, so there is that. Next up, we have the boss timeline. So some of you may be familiar with this. There are Wikaras and add-ons that do this for you. Basically, they will show you the DBM / bigwigs abilities that are counting down from the boss, like what's going to happen next. But they'll show you them in like a bar like this, where abilities will float downwards as they are about to be executed by the boss. So there are some customization options here. You can show spell names, then to the left of the icon, it'll show the name of the spell. Show tooltips, I don't know how it works, but I'm assuming if you put your mouse over the ability, then you are able to see what that ability does, which is probably the only time that people will ever see that if they accidentally enable this, because most people don't check the dungeon journal from my experience. You can adjust the visibility to always visible in combat or hidden. I have it set to in combat because always visible just seems kind of deranged to me. But one thing that I'm noticing is, actually, did I notice that? Let me just check. So I think currently it works. It will show up when you are in combat. Hold on. Wait, why am I just dropping like a rock? Whatever. So it does not seem to appear unless you are in boss combat and there's some abilities showing up. Either that or it is just not working as expected. So there is that, I guess. But yes, it does not show up in regular combat. You need to be in boss combat, which is fine. That is exactly what we were hoping and expecting. Dude, I literally cannot get out of combat to leave this place because I keep rocking moonfires and shit. All right, let me see if I can just, oh goodness, cat form, maybe survive that. Never mind. Can I please get out of combat? Oh my god. There we go. That took some doing. Jesus. Anyway, the boss timeline thing is going to be very, very useful. I'm going to enjoy it myself personally. I never did bother to get those Wikaras and or add-ons that facilitate this sort of UI, but it's nice that Blizzard implemented it for us. While we're on the topic of boss fights, we do have boss warnings here. You can finally customize where those show up in the default UI. I do believe those were not available in retail right now. So you can adjust where your boss warnings are showing up and how big or small they are, which is nice, I guess. Next up, personal resource display. They have now set it up so that the personal resource display is a part of the HUD instead of just a UI element that kind of bobs and jumps around as your camera moves, which is a huge improvement. However, it's still very lackluster because you can hide health and power bars, which basically removes everything from this other than like it doesn't remove everything, but let's put it this way. This is useless to me right now in what I want to make. What I want to make is I want to see my rage bar, and then above it I want to put cooldown manager abilities, and below it I want to put cooldown manager abilities, and I want to be able to replicate my HUD. Right now, I can't adjust the size of my personal resource display. I can't adjust it to only show me my power bar, which is my rage or my mana or whatever, or my energy in cat form. I can only hide both health and power bars. Now, this is useful if you're a class like Paladin or Rogue or I guess Feral Druid if you're in cat form, Warlock, so on and so forth. Why is it useful to them? Because you can see combo points, you can see soul shards, holy power, stuff like that, even if you disable health and power bars. So you can see your resources in a way without having to see the rest of this superfluous information. However, for Guardian Druid, I only care about the Rage Bar. I don't have any other resources that show up like that. So having a bit more customization options here would be really, really nice. If I could just hide the health bar instead of both the health and power bars, that would go a long way. Furthermore, I'd like to be able to adjust the size, height, the width, stuff like that. That would be even better. So I do believe the personal resource display is going to need some more loving. At the very least, I hope add-ons will be able to adjust this as necessary to be able to hide just the health bar. But I have a feeling if options aren't showing up here, we probably won't be able to do that through add-ons either. We'll see though. And of course, you've probably been looking at these for a while now. Party frames. So party frames right now look... how do I say this? A little bit rough. There isn't much more you can customize. You can, of course, adjust the size of the party frames. The same goes for the raid frames. And you can, of course, switch between these standard ones and the raid style ones. The raid style ones being much preferred by at least me. You can also display the border or hide the border. I chose to hide it because it just looks cleaner. So there is that. Of course, the glaring issue is these icons are too tiny. They're absolutely useless. At a glance, I will not be able to tell what these icons represent. At least the way I imagine the gameplay going, I don't find these debuffs particularly useful. They're too small, and also there's no filtering options. I have checked in options, and I'll actually show you here. If you go to interface, you will not be able to further adjust this. You can completely disable debuffs, and you can display only the spellable debuffs, but you cannot adjust anything more than that. As far as text is considered, we can show the health remaining, health lost. So if I'm lower than max HP here, it'll show me how much I've lost. And we can show health percentage, which is absolutely worthless to me. So the way that this data is currently displayed is not particularly useful. Seeing a number like this also really doesn't help me. I'd much rather see 224K instead of 224,068. So these numbers need to be adjusted. I'm assuming that hopefully we will be able to do this through add-ons. So right now, the information, Blizzard is giving us a bar for debuffs. It's giving us a bar for buffs. And I'm hoping that add-ons for unit frames will be able to adjust, first of all, the size of the unit frames, the size of the text, the way that the numbers are displayed. It should not be able to get info on how much their health a target has, but it should be able to show the number itself and where it's located on the frames. So again, Blizzard is limiting combat info and game state info from add-ons, but it's not limiting the display of things, right? So I'm hoping that add-ons will be able to adjust how unit frames look, because right now they really will have to, because if this is the state of things, it's pretty bad. The location of buffs and debuffs, I'm very hopeful will be able to be adjusted, because I don't like the way it is right now. And what Blizzard absolutely must add is a way to filter these. So I hope that's something that's in the works for Blizzard right now, because otherwise this is going to be a shit show. I'm going to see buffs I don't care about, and I'm going to see debuffs I don't care about all the time, and it's going to probably bother the crap out of me, and also just make my life a little bit more difficult as a healer. The same thing goes for raid frames. Again, they're going to need to let us adjust how these look. At least we're going to be able to see buffs now, but I believe debuffs are still going to be an issue. So basically the same goes what I said for party frames for raid frames. And that is pretty much it for the things you can do in edit mode now in the Midnight Beta. We're hoping for some more improvements and some more features. Again, I want to be able to actually use the damage meters, and I want to have multiple windows. This, I think, is something they do not currently support. Furthermore, I want to be able to filter debuffs and adjust the sort of display of this information. Not have access to the information with add-ons, but be able to adjust the display of the information here. Either that, or they're going to have to rework these and let us have just a bunch more customization options, which I really hope is somewhere further down the line a possibility, because again, I don't want to have to maybe use add-ons for these if not necessary. And yeah, Also, personal resource display needs to be more customizable than this. It can't be 2 checkboxes. I want to be able to just hide my health and show the power bar, and I also want to be able to adjust the size of this thing. Like most other things you can adjust the size of, this thing you cannot adjust the size of. So it feels very half-baked, very early days for the personal resource display. But that's pretty much it for this video. If you enjoyed it, drop a like, let me know what else you want me to cover in the beta, and make sure you subscribe because I'm going to be covering the beta a bit more. But as always, friends, thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.